Welcome to the Smart Living Spaces vlog. I am Sharon, architectural and passive house designer. I'm also a Homestar professional located here in New Zealand. It's my mission to make healthy, comfortable, energy efficient and affordable homes for everyday people. So come on a journey with me where I share my knowledge gained over the last couple of decades, because we aren't going to be building better if people don't understand and see the value in changing what we are creating. Hello and welcome to this vlog from me, Sharon, of Smart Living Spaces. I want to introduce you to the people behind the scenes of Small Smart Spaces, my range of pre-designed concepts that are Homestar and Passive House certifiable. And this is possible because of a range of people, products and processes that work really well together for the common result. And those people, products and processes are often quietly working in the background, making amazing things happen. So come with me. And I'm going to introduce you to the people who you as a client might never meet, but who are fundamental in making building better and small smart spaces possible. Now, I asked a few of them if they would have a chat with me, and they all said yes. I was only expecting half, so this vlog will have two parts to it. In the first part, I'm going to cover the foundations, one of the structural systems, the window system, and a chat to an affiliated builder of small smart spaces. Qpod is part of the concrete foundation solution in small smart spaces, and the reason I chose Qpod is because it integrates with a thermal edge system called Quick Edge, and it also embraces offsite componentry that is a more sustainable and more recyclable option to the messy polystyrene we often see on site. Plus, it's a New Zealand-based company. Part of sustainability is supporting our local economy. So this is my chat with Peter Crawshaw of Qpod. Today, I have got Peter from Qpod. Peter, you started Qpod. What made you take that direction?
Yeah, cheers, Sharon, and good morning.
Morning.
Well, firstly, I probably need to credit my father for starting Qpod. He's the brains behind this, and I guess I took it up as a family business. What made us start it? Well, our background is making bar chairs and products for the construction industry. We've been making them since the 80s. So that really coming into 2000, early 2000s, when the raft floors were coming about, poly raft floors becoming recognised and popular and successful. So we thought, hey, why can't we make a recycled plastic version of this? The system works well, it's proven method. Let's make something better. Let's make something out of recycled plastics, something that we can reuse, and something that's better on site, tidier, and better for longevity of our planet.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So foundations often involve more than one system. So how does Qpod adapt and complement other solutions rather than clash with them?
Yeah, cheers. I mean, your approach and everyone's approach today is to be more flexible. We're hearing more and more where designers and contractors don't want to be locked into, one big bully package. So I think what we've done with Qpod is we've really launched a foundation system that's very adaptable in itself, in its own right, for different ground conditions. But then when it gets out to other elements, maybe insulation, how it works in with your framing, how it works in with the concrete, we open these areas up to the experts of those fields. So we're not trying to lock in one massive package here. We're really focusing on our knitting. And then, so working along with probably a really good example is edge insulation with the current environment and H1 changes. So edge insulations, we work along with a lot of systems out there. The Qpod system works in really neatly with them. The likes of Quickset and Quick Edge, they've got a great system out there at the moment. We've worked along with them a lot to date. They've got some really nice systems. And yeah, Qpod works in both neatly with each. Does that kind of help in that respect?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So you and I met up at the High Performer Hub in end of last year, or towards the end of last year in Auckland. I had heard of you guys before, but that's the first time we got to meet face to face. And I told you about what I was doing with small smart spaces, and you were really excited and enthusiastic to come on board. What excited you about what small smart spaces can offer and unlock and unpack?
Yeah, cool. Well, smart spaces, and I'll say that again. Small smart spaces and high performer building. I mean, those two go together really well. So it's a great place to meet because yeah, at high performer building, they've got a lot of awesome products that lend themselves to creating a smart space. But I think what you do, Sharon, at small smart spaces is really awesome. It resonates with us in terms of, you know, being smart about your building practices, being tidy on site, and then having a home that performs. We've got resources and we've got utilities going up and up and up in price every day, and the cost of living carries on going up. I think more and more homeowners and developers and designers are looking at designs that'll perform way more effectively than they did 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So that's what we're looking for. And affordability. I mean, to get something that's efficient and works with our lifestyle, honestly, we've got so much stuff going on in our lives. We haven't got all that time to be, repairing and maintaining and working on a home that's continually aging. So creating something nice, creating something efficient, I think that's right up the alley of what you're doing. And there's others out there sharing what you're doing, sharing that focus. But I think, yeah, you've got a really niche one there, focusing on quality and performance and some flexibility for clients too.
Brilliant.
It
Awesome.
resonates. It does resonate with me personally as well. The idea of building something small and smart, potentially off the grid, while being possibly connected to the grid, the ability to serve oneself on a smaller lot. It really appeals to me.
Brilliant. Awesome. Awesome. I'm going to throw you one last curly, Peter, and I'm going to give you a space to say, what are you working on now? What are you excited to share?
Yeah, cool. We're always working on a whole lot at Qpod. We're got a very innovative team here. We have got some really awesome stuff coming out this year. People have asked us for a long time, can you store water in your pods? We've got a bunch of different pod foundation systems, and water storage was not one of them. As at September this year, it will be. So watch this space for an awesome new water storage system coming out.
Oh, I look forward to seeing it. Awesome. Thank you for your time today, Peter.
I appreciate it. Cheers, Sharon.
Jude and I cross paths often at Offsite New Zealand. Stop Digging is an offsite pile solution that is part of the foundation solutions at Small Smart Spaces. And the reason I love Stop Digging is because there's a streamlined process to reduce consultant costs and offsite solutions that speed up foundations on site. So here is my conversation with Jude from Stop Digging. So I am with Jude Hickson from Stop Digging. Good morning, Jude. How are you?
Good morning. Well, thank you.
Awesome. Jude, there'll be people who will be watching this that aren't familiar with what Stop Digging is. So did you want to just give a brief overview of what it is?
Sure. So it's a ground screw system used for house piling, any type of piling really. As a bit of a background, I've been in the construction industry myself for about 25 years as a builder, mainly in the UK before moving over here about 9 years ago. And piling in the UK is not a massive industry in residential construction. It's mainly concrete and masonry. But I stumbled across the Stop Digging product there when it was relatively new to the country, I suppose, and used it for a number of projects for some repair work, subsidence repairs, as well as some temporary applications. And it was quite obvious that it was extremely simple to use and very, very efficient in what it does, and basically saves a lot of time, a lot of money. And it creates zero waste when you're actually trying to get out of the ground. So fast forward coming here, the construction industry in New Zealand, a lot of houses are built on piles due to topography and just the nature of the construction methods. So we decided to essentially invest in the business and get it going over here. Started slowly with some unconsented work just to get some examples to show people of how efficient the system is, for example, deck piling and so forth. And then after some tie-ups with some sort of forward-thinking structural and geotechnical engineers that we've got good relationships with now from 6-7 years ago, we decided to push further, expand the product range, and try and take on all the weird and wonderful ground conditions that occur throughout New Zealand. And so, here we are now, and we're sort of 2-3 years into having a code mark certification on our system, which is a bit of a game changer because it allows us to essentially establish our system as an entity to be consented simply by council, and not having to have endless sort of third-party engineering inputs that are always up for discussion. And so, yeah, here we are. So house piling, under slab piling for ground improvement, and a multitude of other applications for the business into solar farm, sort of ground mount racking and various civil engineering things like boardwalks and so forth. So there's a wide variety of applications that we're working in now.
That's awesome. The list, it's endless, isn't it? Endless possibilities.
Yes. Yeah.
So your product, for people who don't know this, really does embrace offsite construction, and sustainability in terms of waste. So do you want to speak about the material it's made out of and how it keys into the sustainability in offsite space?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, offsite is obviously all about trying to increase productivity, and what's seen on site is then an extremely quick process, and it sort of is a bit contradicted by getting in and making a massive mess with earthworks and concrete and so forth. And so a ground screw system, to give a very basic example of a small 100 square meter home, it may be somewhere 30 to 40 piles, for example. That's half a day's work for a stop digging foundation to be installed, ready for construction, or if it's modular prefabricated, to be lifted on with a crane if that's the way. There's zero waste, there's zero mess, there's no inspections of holes and so forth. There's considerably less cost in the consenting part of it prior as well, due to our code mark system. And so all in all, as a customer or as a builder, your productivity can go through the roof, because you can actually start building on day 2 rather than week 2 or week 4 if the weather's been bad, and then the nuts and bolts of the system, if you like, is that there are a wide range of ground screw sizes that we use to accommodate typical pile design loads in different types of ground conditions and different topographies. And so that's part of our system. We use on-site static pile testing to verify what we do. So that's a quick and easy process that's done, as the consenting is being reviewed by the council. So it's all done in the background, so that when the consent is issued, the foundation can be installed the next day if everyone's got their ducks in a row, so to speak. So,
and the screw piles can be taken out and reused if you need to move them. Yeah,
they can. Yeah. So we've done a lot of work throughout New Zealand in, I suppose, the tiny home space, which is a good selling point, if you like, in that regard. If people are perhaps leasing land or just having it temporarily for a period of time, or even living in a small unit while they're building something bigger, the screws can go in and come out. And we've also done a lot of work in the education space with transportable classroom foundations and ablution blocks and site office setups for roading projects and things like that, because there is no waste. There is no then having to dig out or pull out concrete foundations and take them to landfill and reinstate ground, and obviously then install brand new somewhere else. We can reuse the screws multiple times. They don't get damaged typically going in and out. So yeah, it's a really, really efficient way of working that.
That's why I love it. I absolutely love it. So I brought you on the Small Smart Spaces. We've seen each other over the years in the collab and offsite space. And I said, hey, Jude, do you want to be a part of this? And you said, absolutely. So what made you excited to be part of Small Smart Spaces, and where did you see the alliance or the alignment with Small Smart Spaces?
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is that it's great to work with people who are wanting to do something that's of good quality, but also that is, it looks nice, and performs well, right? So What I can say with obviously our system, that it's an absolute complement to it, because it will just allow, like I say, your customer, or your building partners around the country to just get on and get this done quickly and efficiently, as well as obviously making the whole thing zero waste and highly sustainable. So I think it's a perfect synergy for this type of thing. So yes, it's really exciting to be doing it going forward, and hopefully we can get going soon.
Absolutely. So, Jude, thank you very much for your time this morning.
That's all right, no problem. I
first chatted to Nick during lockdown, when my interest in the solutions that the offsite space could offer really started. Nick and Formance have a similar drive and passion for delivering healthy, comfortable homes for everyday people, and Formance is a New Zealand business with a great success story. I'm going to let Nick tell you all about it. Hey Nick, it's great to have you here this afternoon. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Sharon. Going well. It's great to be on here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Brilliant. Now, Nick, you have a wonderful story about how you and your family started Formance, and there'll be people who are watching this or listening to this that aren't familiar with that. So do you want to share it with us?
Yeah, sure. So it started back in the Christchurch earthquake time. We just sold another business in a completely different industry, and obviously the earthquake struck, and we were thinking how we could have some impact in the construction industry, and Googled earthquake-proof houses. And came across this wonderful technology called SIPs, or structural insulated panels. And rest is history, I guess. But that was kind of how it started, and we really threw ourselves into it. Probably the biggest thing that was, I guess, in our naivety, we didn't realise there's a thing called the building code. You sort of knew about it, but it wasn't like we were really familiar with it. So by the time we got into it for probably 6 to 12 months, you start realising that actually the biggest challenge is not making panels. The biggest challenge is achieving compliance with the building code and getting product acceptance in our compliance world. So that's kind of the background, and yeah, it's gone from there. We got into the code mark side of things as a way of demonstrating compliance with the building code, and that really opened it up. I think code mark's a great mechanism for innovative product. It's great assurance for designers like yourself, but homeowners as well, that you're getting a product that does meet the requirements of the building code. But it's been a great journey, and got to meet a whole lot of great people like yourself.
Oh, I notice. I'd also say to you, it gives you the opportunity to exceed the building code. You're not constrained by the minimums. Now, I see you just about every year at CoLab, which is Offsite's conference. We're both a big fan of offsite construction. You have also been used in high performance and passive houses quite a bit. What changes have you seen in those spaces over the years? What developments?
It's very interesting, because that's really where SIPS is unique, in that a structural insulated panel is kind of like the Venn diagram. So it's in the middle of the Venn diagram of, on one side, off-site fast, and on the other side, high performance better. So it's right smack in the middle. So you get to participate in all these exciting discussions on both sides. And the changes we've seen, starting with the off-site, I think we've kind of sat sidelined to a lot of efforts, not all successful, on off-site manufacturing, and seen companies with great intentions start up, get excited about perhaps volumetric off-site, and realise that, by observation, not only here but overseas, that potentially volumetric, it's kind of quite niche, and you need a solid pipeline for that to be successful. So we've really seen more of a focus on the off-site manufacturing side towards flat pack, due to its versatility. So we believe that that's where the future is in off-site, is around that flat pack model, because it's just more flexible.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know if have you got a comment yourself on changes you've seen on the CoLabs on the off-site side?
I'm kind of on the same vein with you on this one, that what I love about Formance is you sit in that space between the rigidity of the modular kind of buildings, but then also you're a nice bridge between the bespokeness as well, which is really where small smart spaces sort of sits. And I think you hit the nail on the head that we still need some on-site flexibility. So you've got flexibility with that, so that your panels will suit the project on site, but get the best out of the offsite world as well. I really love that balance that you've achieved.
Mm.
So,
and on the energy efficiency side, encapsulating Homestar, Passive House, generally more energy efficient, more sustainable buildings. Quite interesting how that's all played out. Like version 4, I remember going on the roadshow to announce version 4 of Homestar with Alex from BXG and one or two others. It was quite fun. And then when version 5 arrives, you've got this whole airtightness and ventilation and kind of much more alignment with what Passive House team have been saying for many, many years. And that was quite refreshing, I would say. And to see it kind of aligned around kilowatt hours per square metre per year as a universal measure of energy efficiency. And then it was really interesting to see how the industry kind of deals with the requirements of ventilation. And it's like some of the bigger build partners figuring out, shall I say, how to achieve those objectives. But the momentum in the industry around air tightness and ventilation is awesome. We put into our warranty conditions the last couple of years that you must have a ventilation system to have your Formance warranty. Slightly cheeky, but I think it's driving the right sort of behaviour, because without ventilation, your building could have all sorts of problems, let alone the tenants, as you would well know.
Yes, in fact, when you have airtightness, you've got more chance of there being interstitial condensation and damage, which is why we have partnered with Steel by Ultron and Grant Anderson, which work really well. Nick knows Grant really well too. Lastly, you were so supportive, Nick, when I said, hey, this is what I've been working on. This is Small Smart Spaces. Do you want to come on board? Do you want to be a part of it? You were incredibly supportive. What made you so excited about what we're creating?
I think that's got to start with you, Sharon, your passion for everything that's that you're doing in that space. You really care about the outcomes for people, and you've got some great ideas on how people should live, or how people could live. So I found that quite inspiring. The fact that you've, I'm going to say stuck at it, that's probably not the right word. You've been driven to achieve those goals, and the fact that you've gone down the path of actually thinking right through the design, the costing side of it. You've been really collaborative in the way you've worked with your suppliers. And I think that's where you get the best outcomes. It's not just all your ideas, with great respect to your excellent ideas, but you've actually collaborated with other suppliers to get the best overall outcome. So I'm really excited about the future with you in Smart Living Spaces.
Thanks, Nick. Oh, that warms my heart. Thank you so much for your time, Nick.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the opportunity.
Starke Joinery has been part of the conversations in Building Better for years now, and I first met Benjy at the Living 2.0 Roadshow for Designers a few years back. There's a real passion for building better and doing better that Benjy and the Starke team embrace. Plus, with increased thermal performance closer to timber, but with a price point just above and sometimes cheaper than aluminium, it's a no-brainer. It's manufactured right here in New Zealand, so we don't need to import windows. Starke UPVC joinery is a natural fit in small smart spaces in the mission to create affordable and healthy homes for everyday people. Here's my chat with Benjy. So Benjy's a bit of a jack of all trades at Starke, and I've stolen a gorgeous line from Benjy when he did the Living 2.0 Roadshow, which was a minimum code compliant building is the worst performing building legally built. Benjy, good morning. How are you?
Morning, Sharon. I'm really good. Thank you. Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing this. So I've seen you being quite a strong voice for leading change in our industry. You partnered with Formance and your QS, Steel by Ultron and Joe Life when you went around the Living 2.0 Roadshow for architects and designers, wanting to lift up the design industry to build better. How did you get involved with Starke? What was the story that you had, and why did you become part of Starke?
Yeah, that's a great question. It was at the start of COVID, actually, when I started, so that's just on a bit over 5 years ago. And obviously it was a bit of a time of turmoil for everyone. But yeah, that was when I came on board, and I was from out of the construction industry before that. So that was pretty cool. Learned very quickly in an unusual business environment. With all my first meetings were like on Teams, meeting my colleagues and trying to get to know all these new, quite a big team of new colleagues entirely online, which was pretty weird. But that was 2020. That was before anyone had really heard about H1, and we were supplying a lot of aluminium, just pretty standard aluminium product. And it was about that time we began to have kind of an awakening around the thermal performance of our building envelopes, and obviously specifically the role, the pretty negative role at that time that windows were playing, particularly aluminium windows. So we began to look around us, or I suppose look around the world in terms of window performance at that time. And I had a bit of a hand in some of that. And when H1 came a couple of years later, sort of 21 and 2 really, we felt it put the wind in our sails, as opposed to being a stumbling block like I think some of the other window companies found. And yeah, I've just kind of always been at the front of that, in terms of focusing on window performance and focusing on occupant comfort. And I've got probably a little bit of a personal story there too, in that the house I was living at, that I moved into about that exact same time, start of COVID, around the start of 2020, was 1970s concrete block with no insulation on the outside or the inside of the concrete blocks, and aluminium single glazing from the 70s. And we froze in winter. We had a big fire, and that just didn't do it. And then in summer we absolutely baked. And I didn't know much about building science, building performance, or comfort, or any of these things. But my journey at Starke has been pretty closely mirrored by my journey literally at home, where in the start of 2024 we replaced all of our joinery with our ambience product with low solar gain glass. And through that journey, through the last couple of years, I've learned more about ventilation, and also, condensation and humidity and a few of those other things, but it's all kind of come together. And now the home, with the main changes at joinery and the comfort we experience every day, is just amazing. And that's what drives me, I guess, is that I've experienced what bad feels like, and I've experienced what good feels like, and I know that we're doing that for our customers every day, and that's what feels pretty cool, I think.
That's really great that there's that personal connection and experience that you can also marry up in sort of your professional space as well.
Yeah, it's fun. It makes it fun.
Yeah. You told me a story that I kind of was aware of but wasn't, about UPVC, and it's a bit of a challenge I think that you face in the market when talking about UPVC. Is there's that historical story about the Marley spoutings, or the old plastic spouting and downpipes that all got cracked and brittle. And you had a great insight for me. Did you want to tell anyone who's listening to this just the history of that?
Yeah, I think it's important. And I think it is pretty systemic around New Zealand that there's a perception of UPVC or any product like that it has had UV durability issues. And look, it's not based on nothing. So this story, maybe the story that I told you, although I don't tell it exactly the same every time, but in the 70s and 80s, people parallel imported UPVC windows, specifically white windows from the UK, that were made for the UK domestic market. It's kind of like there was a bunch of expats out here. Their uncle in the UK had a window, fabrication business. They came out to New Zealand and thought, oh, these windows are crap. I know what we need is like some of the good old windows we get back at home. So they parallel imported the windows designed for the UK market, installed them into buildings in New Zealand, and they failed catastrophically, basically overnight. They just, you know, they didn't even nearly work. They didn't even work for a year, and then it just you know, it was dramatic and pretty sudden. And in New Zealand, we just rejected them after that. It didn't take long. Everyone said that product's horrible. We never want to see it on our shores again. And of course, when the original like system suppliers or extruders found out about that or heard our screams from the bottom of the world, they said, well, you should have told us where you're getting your windows from. We actually have a solution for high UV countries. It's just that you didn't buy it. You bought windows designed for the UK residential market. So they proceeded to continue to supply windows to high UV countries like Latin America and Dubai and the Arab Emirates and Australia. But in New Zealand, there was just, for whatever reason, the way the culture worked out, we're a small team, everyone knew what had happened. We kind of just rejected the product and then never went back. Then, you know, these companies kept supplying other high UV countries and developing the product a bit more, making it a bit better and better. And I think now we're literally 40 years later, supplying product that has been, you know, heavily tested and proven itself in high UV countries. And we've done specific testing, like with brands and with a lab out in the Australian desert that has, you know, heightened UV. And all of those problems are long put to bed, but there's still this perception, literally from 40 years ago, that it's a problem product. So I think that's just something, yeah, it's a conversation we have with each client, and it's fair enough that people ask, but it is something that's been put to bed.
You make a very interesting point too when you said that the powder coating on aluminium windows is in fact plastic too. So
Yeah,
you're quite right. It's just a perception thing that historically has lingered.
yeah, I think there's a bunch of examples we use. The powder coat one's great. We have an aluminium production line. We have a powder coat line. We buy bags of plastic powder from Dulux or Interpon. We're accredited for both. And we spray that powder on and then we bake it on, but it's plastic powder. And I think, you know, often it's a conversation with architects who kind of might perceive aluminium to be very durable and perceive UPVC to be not durable without realizing that it's a plastic face that's handling the UV on both systems. And then, you know, when you say that, oh, you know, okay, maybe it's proof that the technology exists to resist plastic, to resist UV. The other example I think that people don't always think of, the likes of the Dynex, I think it's the Palisade weatherboard. It's a UPVC weatherboard, and they've been supplying that successfully since I think the early 2000s. Someone may listen and correct that, but it's around there, 2002, 2003. And, you know, we get reports of people coming back and saying, look, that product from a UV durability point of view is over 20 years later, and it's still perfectly fine. So that's just another example of a very similar product, similar material, holding up to the UV perfectly well.
And Marley Spouting. Marley Spouting is a household, you know, household name.
Sure.
So just speak gently, and I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here, but just speak briefly to the difference in performance that you get from aluminium versus PVC, and then perhaps relative to cost, because historically there was aluminium and then timber windows, and we knew timber windows are better performing and aluminium's less so. That's why we thermally break them now. But where does UPVC sit, and where does Starke's range sit in kind of bridging the gap between affordability and also increased performance?
Yeah, it's a great question. I tried to actually, I've answered this question so many times. I tried to work out a kind of a dollar per R value kind of rating for windows, but I never got anywhere with it. It was a little bit too difficult. But I think the first thing is that in terms of perceptions of aluminium and UPVC and whatnot, Starke was an aluminium company since the early 80s. We've spent, you know, 3 decades supplying aluminium windows that Kiwis are very familiar with in thousands of Kiwi homes. And then when we began to look around, our first perception of UPVC was that it was an inferior product that had superior thermal performance. That was the only thing. We're like, okay, it's great at thermal. and maybe it's crap at everything else. And because H1 was coming, we're like, oh, we'll take a punt, we'll learn a bit more about it because that's maybe what the industry needs. So we got it in, and we got samples in, and we got some machinery in, and we started making it. And one by one, this whole company of dyed-in-the-wool aluminium joiners was like, oh, that little feature is actually, dare I say it, a little bit better. The fact that the rubber seal is co-extruded, so it's not a loose seal. They're like, oh, that's a superior feature. And then the corners are welded together rather than glued and screwed. And they said, oh, actually, that's a superior feature. And that gives better acoustic performance. So like, oh, it's better at acoustics as well. And then there's 2 rubber seals on every window, so that's a step up. And then the frames are actually stronger and have greater resistance to deflection than our residential aluminium. So it's like, oh, it's actually a stronger suite. And like one by one, we're like, oh, it's better in this metric. It's better. And then there was suddenly this moment where like, it's not an inferior window that has good thermal performance. It's just a superior window across the board. And nearly every metric that you care to measure, it has better performance. And that was a big moment for us as a company. It was like, oh, shoot, this is actually better stuff. In terms of the numbers, obviously the R value, which is the big thing we've been focusing on, average is 0.74. A thermally broken window average is 0.5 or 0.46. So it's around 50% better, which is a big jump. When the windows are the area where all your heat's getting lost, to get 50% gains there is massive on your heating bill. Historically, to speak to cost, UPVC's been the most expensive, or a lot more expensive than aluminium, and then timber obviously at the very top. But if we look to the developed markets as kind of, let's say, a crystal ball, if you look at the UK or the US or anywhere in Europe, the UPVC is, indisputably the best bang for buck. It's the everyman's window. It's the normal window that you buy. It keeps you warm. It doesn't cost too much. Actually, what happens in these developed markets is that the quality of aluminium windows that you can currently buy here in New Zealand is not available on the market because it's too low. So you basically can't buy windows that are 0.5 that's considered below code minimum. So then what happens is, to make an aluminium window better performing, it costs a whole lot more. So then the aluminium price skyrockets. So the market develops into the state where UPVC is the best performance and the best price. Right at the moment in New Zealand, we're not there, dare I say, yet. Where we are at is that they're about parity for price, but the performance is still that 50% up. If that makes sense.
Yes, and it'll come in. We know H1 is going to improve because, as you say, some of the products that we use in New Zealand fail other countries' minimum standards. So there's almost a certainty that suddenly UPVC will come into its own, just because the actual material of UPVC is better performing than the material of aluminium.
Yeah, and I think what we see is every client that we demonstrate, every person that interacts with the product, it's kind of a one-way street. They come in knowing aluminium and being uncertain about UPVC, and they leave being very certain that it's what they want in their home. And we don't get, I would say, almost any clients who go the other way. Having experienced both, they would go back to aluminium. Just doesn't happen. So yeah, the more conversations we have, the more people realize what this product will do for them in their home and how it will change their comfort and their lived experience. It's like, that's not a thing that Kiwis have even been able to experience before, is the comfort that these windows would bring.
Yeah, 100%. Now, Benjy, I said to you, I'm working on this thing. It's called Small Smart Spaces. We had a quick Zoom call, and I said, I've put you on as a collaborator. It's better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. And you said, well, you definitely have permission. You were very excited to become a part of it. We've obviously talked before. What excited you about Small Smart Spaces? Why are you really happy to become a part of this?
Well, I think that there's a saying somewhere, maybe Simon Sinek, it starts with why. And I think that's why you I think we both believe the same things, and you know that we want to do better by occupants, by homeowners, by people who live in these spaces, and I know that you want the same. So it's probably what made what made you think, I think Starke's going to be on board with this, and 100% that is the reason why we look at it and go, yes, that's the thing we want to be a part of. There's a lot of different, the mass of the market is made up of, let's say, group home builders or people building it at code minimum, people building these really standard homes, and we get excited by those trying to do more, trying to do something different, trying to build, like you say, above code minimum, because there's no reason not to. You've said it at the start, but the code is not really the building standard, it's the minimum building standard. It's like if you went to buy a car and you bought the cheapest possible car that you could possibly find. I mean, some people have to do that, but that's not what you aspire to. You aspire to something that's more comfortable, something that's maybe a little bit safer, something that you enjoy more, something that makes you happy when you wake up in the morning. And I think that we can see that that's the goal that you're trying to kick with small smart spaces. It's not just lowest possible price, lowest possible spec. It's bringing affordable, quality and comfort to as many people as you can, and that's what we're super passionate about.
Oh, well, it's great to have you on board, and I do appreciate all your support. Thank you for your time, Benjy.
Amazing. Thank you for the interview.
Nathan is a Small Smart Spaces affiliate builder. He's also a certified passive house builder. We both share a belief in passive house and a deep desire to create better homes for New Zealand. Here is Nathan's story and why he is a part of Small Smart Spaces.
So, hi, Nathan. Good morning. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So Nathan is an affiliate builder with Small Smart Spaces, and I wanted to ask you, Nathan, just to explain to people who you are, what you do, and how you came to be Quality Build.
Yeah, so it probably started back at school. I was a little bit different to a lot of other builders you hear on the podcast that struggled at school. I didn't struggle at school. I found it relatively easy. I would naturally prefer to be outside anyway rather than inside. But so following school, jumped in with a builder when I was about 18 in Auckland, and did a little bit of building work until I actually got fired, which is funny. But so I lasted about a year there, and he fired me for taking too long to load a couple of bins. And my family was in the steel fabrication business, so I sort of knew builders on and off then, but that sort of kicked me out of the building trade pretty early, tail between the legs. And so I took a year just sort of working, doing steel fabrication, and then went to university. Thought I'd enjoyed a bit of coaching, so thought I'd try maybe segue towards doing some PE teaching or something like that. And so I went and did a Bachelor of Exercise Physiology. And once I got that degree, sort of thought, I don't really want to do another year. So met my now wife, and she was going overseas in 12 months. So I sort of weighed up, would I be able to go into the industry and save enough money to be able to go, or stay where I was. So I stayed where I was, and then ended up going over to London and Europe, and then spent 5 years over there working for numerous places, and ended up with a builder again. And so we came back after traveling, and I sort of kept landing in this industry. So I was like, I better really probably give this a nudge, because I keep getting pulled back towards it. So started my apprenticeship late at 29, and sort of knocked that on the head in 3.5 years, and worked for a number of builders around the shore in Auckland. And then it was kind of then where I sort of was changing my perspective, looking around and trying to learn a bit of this and that, and then realised that there were some flaws in the industry, not reflecting on those particular people, but there was, the communication wasn't overly good. Some of the ways things were priced, and how there were a lot of tradesmen on the teams I worked on that just sort of did things, because that's how they'd always done them. So there was kind of for me, a cognitive disengagement of what they were doing, why they were doing it. So Quality Build was born out of that frustration basically 11 years ago was the only way that's really going to change is if I try and call the shots myself. Yeah. So we started that. I started Qpod, just me and another guy, and then had an apprentice, and then we just grabbed all the work we could get naturally, and then sort of moved into the architectural space and sort of renovations, alterations, and that's sort of been it to date. Yeah.
It sounds like the name Quality Build has been quite intentional in terms of reflecting not only your frustrations, but your maybe your morals and principles. And you became a passive house builder. So tell me about how that all links in.
Yeah, so that's probably, looking at it now, started when I lived in our family house in the 80s. So we had the typical block base, submerged into the ground. Like I remember my bedroom window was sort of level with the ground, and it was just rife with dirty net curtains, damp red boxes in the corner. So you're always fighting for that eradication of dampness and moisture even then, and that was just the normal thing. And then as I started building more and sort of getting exposed to more and more different type of projects, you sort of started to pick up on little things, and again, trying to grow and go, well, why are we doing this, and how can this potentially have been done better? And seeing some things we'd seen in Europe, there was a lot of boilers, and running radiators in London and stuff like that, but no cooling systems. Lots of heating, no cooling. And then in Europe, everything was quadruple glazed because they're obviously, whether they're modeled to the environment, but they're just reactive to the environment. Whereas here, I think we're soggy, wet, humid, surrounded by lots of trees, and we're just not doing that. So I got to be involved in a couple of reclads, which I thought at the time was really boosting our knowledge, in the building practices, because we had to start thinking more about where's the water actually going, what are we doing in here. It was a little bit more of a more intense process. And then it actually wasn't until we got to be part of the Wunderbar project in Orewa, which had a number of builders go through, and it's finished now, which is great. But we got exposed to sort of the ICF block and service cavities and vented roofs and that sort of thing, and that sort of started making far more sense towards healthy internal environments. And I think that was really the kicker. So it tied into, like you're saying about the quality build, having the quality, being fair. I'm all about the fairness. So the passive house side of it came about with, from having people should be entitled to have a healthy internal environment and have a building perform how it's meant to perform. So that was basically the crux of it. Yeah.
Beautiful. It aligns so well with you, and there's so much resonance between my story and your story, which is why I think when we met each other, we were like, yep, we can work together. Now, I met you up at the High Performer Hub, and I said to you, hey, we saw each other on social media, and I was like, that's probably somebody I should talk to. And you did the same. You're like, I've got to contact that lady. And then I introduced you to Small Smart Spaces, and I didn't have to sell it to you. I didn't have to convince you. You were like, yep, I want to be on board. Tell me why you just went, yes, I want to be a part of this.
Well, I guess because I'd seen some of your marketing come through, possibly LinkedIn or some of the other mediums, and it was, so there was an obvious passion for what you were doing. But there's a lot of people that do that as well. Like, there's a lot of people that'll post things, I'll put things up, they're sort of riding on the coattails of other people commenting, but no one had really seemed to do a call to action that I'd had a look at. I'd sort of been combing that sort of thing, trying to find people, and I'd been stonewalled a little bit when you're trying to contact a few people about maybe, going a bit left or right, and it sort of was a little bit of resistance. People were, which is fine. They were comfortable doing what they were doing, and that worked. So, more power to them. But but you had that passion and something tangible that you were working towards. So there was, it was like, well, here, this is already gone past mulling it over. It's actually, there's intent there. So with the passion with the intent was clearly a winning mixture for me. Like, it's, to be able to try and offer what we could do, or move, branch it out, or however it's going to play out over time.
And create I think this is where we share this frustration, is we need to create a path for people so that it's easier, rather than expecting the public to say, hey, I want this amazing thing called Passive House or Homestar, when they actually don't understand what it is, and it's our job to kind of make it happen for them. So
absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it's breaking down those stereotypes as well, where you hear it a lot on the ground, where it's about being expensive, and isn't that something they do overseas? And like you say, it's just merging that understanding and that knowledge with the practicality into people's lives. I think once they understand that and see the value of it, they sort of get it. Because look at the respiratory issues. I had asthma until I was 10. My daughter had it. Even that alone is, to me is reason enough to be up-speccing, and as builders I think we should be getting to a certain point, then constantly growing and trying to improve, because even at the base level, schools, start with schools, making the schools healthy, maybe, because that's the next generation coming through. There's so many avenues to do it, but there just seems to be such a disjointed understanding around it all, I think.
Yes, well, that's our mission, isn't it, Nathan? Together to make small smart spaces more accessible and make healthy, comfortable homes for everyday people. So thank you for your time. I've loved your story.
Yeah, no, you're welcome.
I just wanted to say a big thank you to the collaborators for their time. If you're curious about them, the link to their websites are on the Small Smart Spaces page. I'll put the link in the description below. If you want to get these vlogs delivered to your inbox every month, the link to get added to the email list is also below. So stay tuned for part 2, where I cover one of the cladding systems, the mechanical heat recovery ventilation, the structural mid-floor and stairs, insulation, and a chat with the business development manager who is part of Homestar. See you then.